Let's get to the lightweight division now. Number 1 in the world. Is there any doubt? The UFC champion, Benson Henderson. He was number 1 last month, and he remains there. At number 2, we have the answer, Frankie Edgar. He's the former champion. And yes, he will be making his drop to featherweight tomorrow, but until he does, he's a lightweight. And, we'll see how he does at featherweight. Maybe next month, we'll have him at number 1 overall in the 145-pound division, or maybe we'll have him somewhere in the middle. I don't know where Frankie Edgar stacks up at featherweight because we haven't seen him at featherweight, so that's why he's not in those rankings, and he remains the number 2 lightweight in the world. Who's beaten Frankie Edgar other than Benson Henderson at 155 pounds right now? Gray Maynard is number 3. He couldn't beat Frankie Edgar. At number 4, we have Gilbert Melendez. I'd like to see him fight Frankie Edgar. That would be great, but instead he's going to fight the current champion, Benson Henderson, on April 20th for the UFC on Fox 7. At number 5 in the world, we have Anthony Pettis. Fresh off that win over Donald Cerrone. Pettis looking fantastic. A fight with Gray Maynard would be kind of fun to watch between Pettis and Maynard. I mean, Edgar's dropping down. Melendez at number 4 is fighting number 1 Benson, so why not the number 3 versus the number 5? Gray Maynard number 3, Pettis number 5. Both of those guys looking for their next opponents. That'd be pretty good. At number 6, we have Nate Diaz. He'll fight Josh Thompson on April 20th at that UFC on Fox card. At number 7, we have Jim Miller. Miller actually jumping in. He was number 8 last month, but he comes in at number 7 this month, as Clay Guida was number 7 last month, but he made his drop successfully into the featherweight division this past weekend. So Guida is now no longer a lightweight, and Jim Miller benefits by jumping up from 8 to 7. Michael Chandler also benefits. He was number 10 last month, but he's going to jump in at the number 8 spot because Donald Cerrone, who was in at number 9, will drop down to number 10, and Eddie Alvarez will come back into the picture at number 9 at lightweight. So a couple Bellator guys making moves. Cerrone dropping down to number 10 after a loss to Pettis, and Michael Chandler looking amazing, defeating Rick Hahn in his last bout. And Chandler moves into the 8th overall spot at 10-0. You can't deny what Michael Chandler has been able to do. And Eddie Alvarez looked real good, knocking out Patricky Pitbull in his last bout in October. So Eddie Alvarez jumps into the number 9 spot. But, man, this division very, very competitive. And, guys like Khabib Nurmagomedov, TJ Grant, both of those guys just undefeated in the UFC. They could move into the top 10 with one more big win in the octagon. So definitely a lot of movement at lightweight. Not so much in the top 6 of the division, but the bottom 4 definitely moving around. And it just shows how competitive the 155-pound weight class is right now. So Chandler jumping in at number 8. Eddie Alvarez coming in at number 9. And Cerrone dropping to 10, while Clay Guida makes an exit as he drops down to featherweight this month.
As much as I like your Gray against Pettis matchup, I'd rather see Miller against Gray instead. I think Miller needs to step up now in competition after that big win over Lozone. Pettis, I honestly think he should get the next shot.
Yeah, well, he's going to wait. Actually, yeah, you're right. Maybe Miller and Maynard would make more sense because Pettis did say he was going to wait for the winner of Melendez and Henderson. And I think if the UFC says, yeah, you're going to get the shot, and he's deciding to wait, then that's what he should do. So I agree with you, John. You were correct. Jim Miller, Gray Maynard, I think is a better matchup, and I think Pettis does deserve the shot and should wait. But what do you think about Eddie Alvarez jumping back in? What do you think about Michael Chandler in at number 8? Those Bellator guys, they're making they're making waves, especially Michael Chandler. This guy is more impressive every time he steps into that Bellator cage.
I know it's difficult to see Bellator fighters like in the top 10 for a lot of people. To see them like they're not fighting the top competition in the world, but still, like the fact that they're so dominant, so impressive. Regardless, even if they were in the UFC, I'm pretty sure they'd be highly competitive as well.
Yeah, I mean, the UFC's trying to get Eddie Alvarez in there. There's got to be a reason. And I think Eddie Alvarez would do some real damage at lightweight, and so would Michael Chandler if they were in the UFC. Let's get to the featherweight division now. Jose Aldo, number 1. He fights tomorrow night to defend his title against Frankie Edgar. Chad Mendes is in at number 2. He remains there from last month. At number 3, we have Ricardo Lamas. Lamas knocking Eric Koch out of the number 3 spot when he knocked him out on January 26th at UFC on Fox 6. So Lamas now improving to 13-2. He was number 5 last month, and he jumps into number 3 overall after the win over Eric Koch. Koch, who was number 3 last month, drops down to number 5. Remaining at number 4 is the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung. At number 6, Cub Swanson. At number 7, we have Darren Elkins taking Hatsu Hioki's spot as Hatsu suffered his second straight loss, losing on Fox to Clay Guida this past weekend. So Hatsu was number 7 last month and now is out of the top 10 rankings. Darren Elkins, who was number 8 last month, takes his spot at number 7. Pat Curran, who's number 9, jumps up to number 8. Curran is the Bellator featherweight champion. At number 9, we have Dennis Siver jumping up from 10 into 9, and making his debut in the featherweight top 10 is the Carpenter, Clay Guida. Getting a win over Hatsu Hioki is very impressive when you can knock off the number 10 guy or number 7 guy in the world, and you were coming in as a top 10 at lightweight. I think Guida deserves a spot in the top 10 at featherweight, and he is number 10 in the world right now on our rankings.
It really seems all the movement's going to come from the top 2 with Aldo and Mendes fighting, and with Frankie coming into the picture now, it seems like the top 3 might change.
I mean, a lot of moving parts in that featherweight division, right? We saw a lot of movement this month at featherweight, and there's going to be big fights at featherweight coming up, in February. So a lot of stuff is happening. Yeah, Mendes is fighting Manny Gamborian February 23rd. Jose Aldo at number 1. He fights tomorrow night against Frankie Edgar. Who knows where Edgar will stack up at featherweight? Ricardo Lamas just came off a fight. Chan Sung Jung still waiting for a fight. I think him and Lamas would be pretty cool to see fight against each other. Cub Swanson fights this month. He fights Dennis Siver February 16th. So you have the number 6 fighter in the world taking on the number 9 fighter in the world on February 16th. I mean, we have a lot of featherweights in action this month, man. So it's an interesting 145-pound weight class, and it gets even more interesting after tomorrow night